I recently had my metabolism tested, and the results challenged some of my assumptions around food, exercise, and energy. Many people think metabolism is fixed, but it's actually highly adaptable and measurable. Hi, I'm Emma Sutherland, clinical naturopath, author, mum, and your host. With over 20 years in clinical practice, I've helped thousands of women and their families transform their health using evidence-based integrative strategies. With us today is Adam Meredith, who is the founder of Body Measure. He has a background as a chiro and now leads the body composition and health optimization services at Body Measure. He is a chiropractor turned metabolic health and body composition specialist. Thank you so much for joining me today, Adam. I really appreciate your time. Now, you originally trained as a chiropractor, but how did you transition across into the metabolic testing and that body composition work that you do?
Yeah, because I got a pot belly at 38 and I really did have a little pot belly. It was the classic skinny arms, skinny legs pot belly. I was so surprised. So I Googled it because that was prior to ChatGPT, and I came across visceral fat. And then once I got into visceral fat, I didn't realize it was everything from like diabetes right through to heart attacks, right through to cancers, right through to like high blood pressure, high cholesterol. And I thought, my goodness, if you could measure this and then you could remove it, I could, really help my patients. Because obviously I was doing back pain, neck pain, and headaches. And now I had access to a much broader way of helping my clients.
Yeah, I love that framework. And I always love when practitioners come at things from that authentic experience themselves. It's so profound.
I think we all our interests as practitioners are from personal experience, always.
Yeah, I would have to concur with that. So when we're talking about the word metabolism, people often think calories, but what does metabolism actually mean?
Yeah, so think of it in two ways. It's the conversion of food to energy. So that's chemistry, food to energy. And then once that's converted, do I store it or do I burn it? Those processes are metabolism.
Perfect. Now, I came in, the way I met you was that one of my patients said, hey, I heard about this testing at this place, and me being me, I'm not going to go and refer a patient till I've done something myself. So I recently came and had a DEXA scan with you, did a whole heap of testing, and it was amazing to see that my osteopenia was flagged on the test with some bone thinning evident. But can you explain for people that don't know or haven't done it, what body composition testing tells us that the scales just can't?
Yeah, so this is probably one of the biggest confusions in DEXA scans. So when a GP says, hey, get a DEXA scan, they're talking about my machine and they're talking about bone mineral density, which is a medical test. And we do those. But the population who says get a DEXA scan, they're talking about body composition. So same machine, different software, different tests. We do both. With the body composition, the really good thing is we can do bone mineral composition. So your bone mineral content came up at 2.2 kilograms. And then we have to know, is that enough bone mineral content for your height? So when we divide it by your height, we get to a score of 0.9. In general terms, for boys and girls, interestingly, you want that number to be 1.0. Generally, 0.9 may indicate some osteopenia or early bone thinning. And that's when you would order a bone mineral density test, which is what the GPs are always ordering. Same machine, different program. And that's something that we often do on the spot. 0.9 can be, often does show up something, but when it's 0.8 or 0.7, I'll nearly always say to the client, hey, look, let's organize a BMD. And nearly always have got osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Yeah, I was really impressed that you flagged straight away to me that it's something that I should look at. So from that preventative medicine side of things, like you could be picking up, and I'm sure you do, quite often you're sending patients back to whoever to look further into that. And then at least it's an early detection because according to Medicare, we don't need to do a bone mineral density test until we're like 65. We're already osteopenic by then.
Yeah, it is crazy with Medicare. And generally, I think you have to have a parathyroid cancer or you have to have broken a bone before you can get it on Medicare. So you're right. It's a very cheap way to get it. And the great thing is if it comes back normal, it will generally say come back in 2 or 5 years. If it's osteopenic, so not osteoporosis, you've got a long time and a lot of ways to improve it back to healthy.
Absolutely. And then when it comes to the muscle side of things, why are muscles so important for metabolism, but particularly as we get older?
Yeah, so we describe what metabolism is, the conversion, and then whether to store it or to burn it. And then we often talk about the RMR, which is the resting metabolic rate, which is the entire calories you need if your eyes are open and you're relaxed for 24 hours.
Okay.
It
Okay.
just turns out that muscles are a huge consumer of energy and calories. And not only that, we have voluntary control over muscles. So a lot of more muscle, more calories burned at rest. And the more using of muscles, the more calories you can burn. And then by using the muscles, you can change your hormonal profile, which I'm sure we'll talk a lot about hormones later on.
I also did my metabolic test, which was mind blowing. Like I am telling everybody they need to go and do it. My basal metabolic rate was about 1,200 calories, and my testing showed that I burn around 87% of fat for fuel, and about 13% is glucose. But what does that mean in plain English around metabolic function?
Yeah. So first of all, your metabolic rate was actually 1700.
Ah,
What
my
you're
mistake.
no, what you're referring to is the guesstimated RMR from a formula. And that's why we do metabolic testing, because yours was out by 500
It's a
calories.
lot.
Yeah, and the metabolic formulas are kind of crazy. So can I say your weight on
Yeah,
YouTube?
that's
So
fine.
you're 55 kilograms. Imagine if at 55 kilograms fit, which you are, versus 55 and very overweight and unfit. Well, if you use the formulas, they'll have the same metabolic rate. And that's very unlikely that a fit 55 kilogram will have the same. So I really like doing metabolic tests because it's often very different to the predicted that people do online. Yours was about 500. It wasn't surprising that yours was high because remember we did your muscularity score and your muscle score was very high.
Mm.
And as we said before, muscles are a big driver, a consumer of calories. So that all made sense to us.
Yeah. But essentially, 500 calories is a lot. That's maybe what, 30%. If I was going off an online calculator compared to what my body actually needs, that's a huge difference that could make a very um, huge impact on how I feel and all of those markers of health. When it comes to metabolic flexibility, it's a term that we're hearing more and more, especially in the online space. What is the concept of metabolic flexibility and why is it important to be able to switch from burning fat to burning glucose? I mean, what's the benefit of each?
Yes, we have to remember that we're cave people. So apparently we look like this 30 to 50,000 years ago, right? And think about that. That's probably naked in the forest. So that's what our genes are for. So we're not actually monkeys, we're hominids, and we've evolved to be fat burning when you're doing zone one, zone two. So think walking, carrying a baby, walking up a hill. This is zone one, zone two. This is very clean fuel that we produce. So it doesn't produce much oxidation and it's stable. And we've got a lot of fat under our skin. That's how we've evolved. So we've got plenty of calories to walk. But if a saber-tooth tiger comes and you have to run for your life, you need a very fast form of energy. So you immediately get adrenaline and that pushes glucose into your body, I think within 5 seconds, right?
Wow.
Boom. Yeah, it's super quick. And then after that, so now we've gone from fat burning, slow, steady, to a very fast, high demand fuel. And then cortisol kicks in and now we're running for our life. Then after the event, if you got away, you're supposed to calm down and go back into fat burning. So the essence is cave people lived in zone one, zone two fat burning, but when there was great exertion needed, we evolved a system to get fuel very fast and very quickly to our body. So that's why it's
Okay.
important to go in and out. Fast forward in modern day, the reason it's so important is people do not fall back into fat burning. They stay in sugar burning even when they're at rest. And now you've got a big problem with your body composition and health and actually longevity.
So what happens if someone stays in sugar burning predominantly? What happens within their body?
Yeah, so this is where it basically starts. You have high glucose all the time. because you're in sugar burning, not fat burning, so you're not accessing your fat. Then your poor pancreas has to deal with the increased load in the glucose because high blood glucose will kill you, and your body knows that. So it starts to pump out way more insulin than it would normally. And when you do that for a period of time, you have so much insulin, you become hyperinsulinemic. And now you've got high insulin in your body, and high insulin in your body says to your body, store fat, don't release it. So now you're starting to put on weight. And that's what is the starting point for many people's journey into things like, I diet, I don't get the response. Or if I diet and then I take a little break, I blow up like a balloon. These people are often high glucose people with high insulin, and the high insulin is causing the entire problem.
I find all of this fascinating because I do a lot of glucose tolerance testing. I will refer patients out for 2-hour glucose tolerance testing not just glucose, but always doing the insulin at baseline 1 hour and 2 hour. And I get mind blown by the amount of patients that come back. Their glucose all looks within range, but you look at the insulin and it's all high normal or above range, just 1 or 2 points above range. And so it's very clear on that test that somebody is stuck in that kind of glucose burning mode. And these are the patients that say to me, I just can't lose weight. It's always stored around my middle. It's so easy for me to put on weight. So I really agree with you, but I love that your testing gives way more information.
Yeah, so we can definitely tell if you're fat burning or sugar burning on the metabolic test. And we now do run our own bloods. And what we do is the fasting insulin and the fasting glucose. Then you can get your HOMA IR score. So a lot of people don't realize, but you can get a measure, are you insulin resistant? And then by how much? And then, of course, you can work to get it back down to insulin sensitive again. And what you described, when people are like, it's calories in, calories out, that's true if your insulin's normal.
Yes.
If your insulin
yes.
is not normal, the whole calories in, calories out becomes very befuddled, and it just doesn't work like it used to.
Yeah. When we looked at my mitochondrial efficiency, and this is the only test I've ever done that's giving me this data, one of the markers there showed that mine was reduced. I mean, it was still okay, but as health practitioners, we always want to be optimal. That actually really horrified me. What exactly are mitochondria? Let's cover that first. And then how do they affect energy, metabolism, recovery? Like, tell us more about that.
We talk a lot about mitochondria. This is what's freaky. So in every cell, you have dozens to hundreds of mitochondria. And it's the most marketed term in the world because all my clients say it. They're the powerhouse of the cell. So they produce energy so that you live. If they stop, you'll die within about 30 seconds. And guess what? Cyanide stops mitochondria. It doesn't hurt the human cell. It stops the mitochondria, and then you die in about 30 seconds. So you're producing all this energy through your mitochondria. What's really freaky is you only get mitochondria from your mum. You get none from your father. So if you want to look at your health and longevity, you should look at your mum and your grandmother because your father and grandfather have not contributed at all. And if you remember, we measured the oxygen that you breathed in during the metabolic test and the CO2 you
Yes.
breathed out. The CO2 that you breathe out, you didn't make, Emma. Your mitochondria made that CO2. So all the CO2 you breathe out is predominantly from your mitochondria. It's a freaky symbiotic arrangement that apparently happened billions of years ago. But the short of it is, the healthier your mitochondria, the healthier you are and the longer that you will live.
And so with mine being slightly it was normal but low normal, what do you normally see in people that do that testing? And how do you explain to them, you could start tweaking and doing this to start supporting your mitochondria?
Yeah, so when people have to realize that when someone says, oh, I'm a sugar burner or a fat burner, they're actually talking about what's happening inside the mitochondria. That's where it happens. That's where the fat burning and the sugar burning occurs. But what tells it to burn sugar or fat or to store or whatnot is the hormones around it. So the big players are insulin and the big players are cortisol, which is a stress hormone. So they're the two that we manipulate the most to get people into fat burning and then to get people's mitochondrial scores improved.
Yeah. So talking about that, we know that you explained before that when there's higher insulin, cortisol can also come up and we're getting this vicious cycle. How do you feel in modern society from a cortisol perspective? I mean, as a naturopath, we use these generic terms like adrenal burnout and all of that kind of thing. But from a more clinical angle, what is going on?
So, insulin and cortisol are the two biggest things that we talk about for sure. I would say for most of my clients is too much cortisol. And cortisol is a bona fide hormone, right? It exists, it is true, and its job is to mobilize glucose. The trouble is, K people didn't undergo the chronic stress that we did. They were probably quite happy. Something chased them. They got eaten and they died, or they survived and then calmed down. So we didn't evolve for long-term chronic cortisol. And remember, cortisol makes glucose into your blood. Chronic cortisol is chronically pushing glucose into your blood. And because of that, the insulin's becoming too high. And now you're on your way to metabolic syndrome, prediabetes, and diabetes. So for me, cortisol really, the whole thing's interconnected, like you said. But to me, if you focus on cortisol and you fix that, you fix the whole gamut and the whole spectrum of what's going on.
Mm.
And the biggest drivers are sleep, undereating, overtraining, and generalized stress. And that's the four things that we work on. You have to get your sleep right and you have to get the other three right.
Yeah, well, you gave me a little insight when we were talking about things with me, and you asked me if I wake up in the night to go for a wee, because sometimes, well, that reflects a circadian rhythm dysfunction. Can you talk us through that? Because I don't think most people would understand this.
So this is the number one question I ask all my clients. And it looks like that if you wake up at 3 a.m. in the morning, it's from a cortisol surge. And in my opinion, first of all, in my opinion, it's not because you need to go to the toilet. It's because your body's circadian rhythm's out, thinks it's time to get up, take a wee, and off you go.
Mm.
And it's nearly, honestly, we've done 20,000 scans. So I've asked this thousands of times. It's nearly always around 3 or 2. It's always that. And they wake up, wake, and take a whiz. So the only way to fix that is to fix your circadian rhythm. And the only way to do that is to manipulate your light environment. That's the most important thing. No
Mhm.
screens at night. The blue light blocking glasses, everyone should wear those when the sun goes down,
Yep.
and then get
Yep.
morning sunlight in your eyes. This has changed people. I know because I asked them, are you still waking up? And they're like, I don't wake up now. If you wake up once or twice a week at 3 a.m., your sleep is very disrupted. And I've got people that are waking up once a night or twice a night, 7 days a week. Well, your body will be high in cortisol. So therefore you'll be more likely to be a sugar burner. And therefore you're likely to have hyperinsulinemia. And now you've started the game into
Yeah.
bad body composition, overweight, weight around my waist. Everyone's tired. One of the biggest ways that you can improve how tired you are is to lower your insulin to around 5 or 7. I had 2 bloods today. One was 9, one was 13.
Yeah.
This is crazy high.
Yeah. I would agree. And I want to point out that it also depends on which lab you use and what reference range. So I've got some labs that report a insulin fasting is normal if it's up to 20, which I think is outrageous. I kind of go, yeah, 6 to 8, 5 to 7 is where we want to see insulin. Um, when we did my metabolic test, it became really clear that I definitely need to fuel better on my exercise days and that my fuel needs change with the level or the type of activity that I'm actually doing. I found it fascinating, your framework around exercise zones, because it's the first time I've heard it being explained by this about nose breathing and mouth breathing. Talk us through that framework, because that to me was like, oh, I don't have to even look at my aura. I know what zone I'm in now.
Yeah, so all the tech out there, I don't believe all of it actually. I've got an Aura Ring. I love the tech. But the simplest thing is, it looks like we evolved for zone 1 and zone 2 fat burning as these bipedal hominids. How do you know if you're fat burning? It's any exercise you can do where you can breathe through your nose. So walking, you can definitely do that with your mouth closed. And think light jogging. That kind of intensity where you can breathe through your nose, that is zone 1 and zone 2, almost by definition. I don't think K people walked around with their mouths open, bugs go in, bacteria goes in, dirt. So our whole world was mouth closed, and we've evolved for that. When you have to go into sugar burning, you're now talking zone 3, 4, and 5. And that's any sort of exercise where your mouth is open and you're going for it. Fortunately, most of my clients are doing zone 4 and 5 an hour maybe 5 to 6 times a week. And for those people, it's actually too much. That was the 4 pillars of cortisol: sleep, undereating, overtraining, and generalized stress. Most people are training too hard and they're undereating. So with the metabolic test, you get a complete calorie plan. You've got the calories for zone 1 and zone 2. How do I know? Breathing through your nose. And then when you go to zone 3, 4, and 5, for every half an hour increment in zone 3, 4, and 5, so that's weightlifting, CrossFit, interval training, any class you go to, spin class, any class, they're all zone 4s and 5s. You must eat more on those days. If you don't, it stresses the body. And now we're back to, it's always the same thing: cortisol, glucose, hyperinsulinemia, and now you're on your path to diabetes.
Yeah, and you also said something interesting to me around if you're slightly under fueling, that the energy could be coming from your muscles. Like your muscles can actually be used for energy. So you're kind of sacrificing the muscles that you're trying to build because they're from a catabolic perspective, they're being broken down to be used for the energy that is in deficit.
100%. And this is huge. So it was really lucky because I employ sports scientists and exercise physiologists in my business, but I was a chiro, so I was just observing it. So when we measured you and you were a fat burner, I can say, hand on heart, she's a fat burner at rest. That's physiologically appropriate for this species, for this hominid. What I don't know is what's happening when you're exercising and what your day is like through the rest of the day. But if you're fat burning at zone 1 and zone 2, your body is not catabolic at all. But if you're a sugar burner and you've got the glucose and the insulin, your body will, as you said, take amino acids from your muscles. And it's quite amazing. Take amino acid from your muscles, like your calf, pop it into the liver, convert that amino acid into glucose, push that glucose out into your blood, and then your body is now using the glucose that you've cannibalized or catabolized from your own muscle. That's what cortisol does when it's chronic and long term. That's why I see this all the time. So you're 55.
Yeah.
So they
Yeah.
go from 55 down to 53 on scales. Seems great. But the DEXA shows that they lost 3 kilograms of muscle and added a kilogram of fat. And when you start to see that at the beginning, it took thousands of scares before I realized, wow, this is a evolutionary thing for low food environments that are stressful. Your body will catabolize the muscle, actually convert it to glucose, and you can actually put on fat during that process. That's why it's so frustrating. And that's why calories in, calories out is not true.
Yeah, and it gives me so much respect for the human body and how we have evolved and we've lasted so many thousands of years because we had these incredible survival mechanisms. But in modern day life, it's so important that we get it right because our caveman and cavewoman survival mechanisms will sabotage us every single time.
100%. And what's some consolidation to some of my clients is if you very quickly go into sugar burning and you stop the fat burning, you're probably a very successful famine surviving cave person. And the people that seem to just drop weight really quickly, they probably would have died back in the day. So that's the only silver lining to that. But you're right, we must realize how we've evolved and we must put ourselves into situations where we're using our physiology, not fighting it.
Mm.
And the best way to fight it, diet. If things aren't working, diet harder, train more. That is the absolute wrong thing to do. I can't tell you the amount of times we've stripped back the intensity of the workouts. We've added 400 or 500 calories in extra, told them just to relax a little. And all of a sudden they go anabolic. They start to put on muscle and they start to lose fat because that's how we're designed. There is 2 systems. There's surviving and thriving. And most people are in surviving. People don't also realize when you're surviving, the biggest way that you will save calories so that you won't lose fat is you actually stop fidgeting. So, NEAT,
Yes.
non-exercise, right? So, and I was like, oh, really? I was like, really? But it can be up to 500 to 600 calories a day saved by not being animated. Then men and women can also shut down testosterone, shut down estrogen, shut down reproduction, and then it'll slow down your metabolism. But your body will very, very quickly stop movement to conserve. And I always say to my bodybuilding people, to the wives that come in, I say, your husband knows when he's pre-comp because he won't do the dishes or make the bed. And they're like, yeah, he just sits in front of the television. That's part of the system. And it's way more powerful than I ever gave it credit for, actually.
Yeah, I think that the interesting thing around that is that nobody is thinking about what those incremental movements are doing for our metabolism. And from that naturopathic angle, we really see this. I work a lot with female hormones and fertility, and we really see this mismatch between energy and expenditure and calories in this space because the hormones start going offline.
Correct. Correct. And many of the times it's a survival mechanism. So that's why the hardest thing for a lot of, particularly the female clients, is to eat. So we reverse diet them. For psychological reasons, we just add 150 calories a week, every week, and also for digestive stress. But honestly, by the time they get to the third or fourth week and they come back in for their scan, they're like, I'm sleeping better, I'm progressing in the gym, and often their weight has gone up, but their belt size has gone in. So they're retaining more muscle, more glycogen. It's really amazing, but I get why it's so difficult to understand because we're just told calories in, calories out. If it's not working, you're not doing enough or you're cheating. And it's not, you're fighting your actual caveman, cavewoman DNA.
So if somebody is not eating quite enough, let's just say under eating by 200, 300 calories a day, what are some key signs that people can look out for that might indicate that they're under fueling like that?
Yeah, no progression in the gym, no matter what, after weeks. No progression in any sport that you're doing. You're just not getting, you feel stable. I have a lot of people that sleep after the gym. That's a big sign that things are wrong. You should be snoozing after the gym. You should feel neutral or slightly pumped, but not devastated. But the classic is no matter what I do, I can't lose weight. There's a good chance you're sugar burning and there's a good chance that you're in survival mode. So your body will, even though you've decreased your calories, your body will do things to decrease it to there to stay stable. And
Yeah.
it's just to cut you off, here's the last thing. And always in 20,000 scans, it's always ended this way. When someone's under eating and they turn to sugar burning, it always ends with the flu or an injury. Always. Why?
Okay.
Because your body will eventually calm down the energy required from your system, pop it down, rest and repair, turn it down. And that's how it always ends. Flu or injury. That's how sugar burners end.
Okay, so really good red flags there. If we're seeing tiredness after the gym, if we're seeing weight not budging, if we're seeing gym is not progressing, you're not able to incrementally do that progressive loading, um, good insights there, or injury or crash and burn.
Correct. And just the last thing, if you don't want to go to the gym, you'll probably run down under eating. We are made to move. We walked out of Africa. We're not like sloths. Sloths are actually evolved not to move, right? Stay very still. We're highly mobile. The moment you don't want to move, the moment you want to hop in the car and drive up to the road, up to the shop that's only a 5-minute walk, you are in this mode for sure.
I think most people do not understand how much we're meant to move. And we just got to kind of caveat that movement is movement. We're not talking about being at the gym for 4 hours a day. We're talking about just movement, that we are designed and built for movement because we are so sedentary now.
Correct. And I'm all for weightlifting, but back to the 4 pillars of cortisol, right? Poor sleep, under eating, overtraining is a big one. Think about someone doing really heavy workouts, often to failure,
Yeah.
an hour 4 times a week. And then look at the tribes that exist now in hunter and gather. They walk,
Mm.
carry back something, carry back some tubers, but they're not training on the 3rd set, on the 15th rep to hypertrophy. So the load that we're doing often has to be decreased in a lot of people until their energy's back, and then they can go for it if they want to. And I'm all for maintaining muscle. The emphasis in my clinic is to maintain muscle, not necessarily hypertrophy to a level that you wouldn't be out in the wild.
Yeah, I think that's sensible.
Yeah, maintain your muscle mass, be strong, and live within the genetic means, and do not push the overtraining button on top of the undereating button whilst you're not sleeping and getting up to take a wee at 3 o'clock most mornings. How can you thrive under these situations.
Yeah, it's impossible. It's actually, yeah, it's not possible at all.
And I get why
Um,
people make the mistake, because when they were 18 and they dieted and they worked out, it did work. But the hormonal profile at you were 18 and the stress levels is not the same at 48 or 38. So that's,
Hell no.
and I
You didn't
get,
have a mortgage, you didn't have kids, you didn't have a high level job. Like there's
correct.
so many other things happening, that life stage.
Yep. And then it activates the cortisol, and then you have more blood glucose, and then you have high insulin, and then off you go to thick, fat, and hard to lose weight. It's really obvious when you look through the lens of cave people, but it's hard when you look through the lens of calories in, calories out, because if you're failing, well, maybe I should eat less calories and train more. And it's the exact opposite of what you need to do.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things I loved about coming to see you was how specific you were in telling me, hey, these are some actionable steps. And we kind of talked it through. You didn't just tell me what to do, we talked it through about what kind of felt right. You're like, look, walk 10,000 steps a day, eat more on your exercise days, get more morning light, like strength train 3 times a week, do cardio twice a week, keep the bedroom cool, no phone before bed. I mean, these were all things that didn't feel overwhelming to me. They were like, yeah, okay, I can do that. And I really appreciated that. Of course, sometimes there's a theoretical, but you were so practical. So I think if there's anyone thinking about coming and seeing you, getting this testing done, that, I think it's good for them to know that you're very realistic and it's very, liked the way that you went around that.
Yeah, thanks for that. Because I mean, I was a chiro for a long time, so I'm very results driven. So we would take our X-rays, we'd do our therapy, we would recheck, and I used to take posture photos of all my clients for the whole time. I want results, and there are It's a hard statement, but do you know biology doesn't care about your feelings?
Yeah,
I've
it's so
learned
sad, isn't
it
it?
is. It doesn't care, and you can rationalize, but that's great. But biology has its rules. So then I get to the client and say, look, these are the rules. What makes sense to you and what could you do? That's the smallest thing to move towards not breaking these rules. And I let the client do it. And it's going to be a little while before you change these things. But if you do, you'll find that the weight just melts off without you like, oh, I'm dieting. Why is it not happening in the mirror? I did this, nothing's changed. You just move towards your biology and the fat will go away.
Yeah, so what kind of reactions do you get from people when you run these tests and give them those kind of recommendations? Because I gave you my reaction, but what do you hear or what's the experience for people?
So people are very surprised with the amount of information from our DEXA, like just the amount from hip to waist to visceral fat to us actually calculating your ideal weight. So they're definitely surprised by that. And same with the metabolic. And they are surprised that I'm telling them to eat less and train more. I
Yes,
think that's
yes.
they're really surprised. But here's the funny thing. I've never had a consult where someone hasn't said, do you know that makes sense? I sensed I was flogging myself. I sensed the food's too low. It's funny when I explain it to them, most people are like, yeah, that makes sense.
Mm.
Because they're repeating the same thing and they're doing what they used to do is no longer working. And when we explain it in terms of cortisol and cave people, it does make a lot of sense to a lot of people.
Yeah, I think it's a huge sense of relief as well that you haven't got it wrong. All the effort you've been doing, you can feel stupid for really trying and failing. And I think that becomes a negative self talk and then it becomes a psychological issue as well. So I love that this is a bit of an aha moment psychologically and intellectually.
Yeah. And the beautiful thing is the return DEXA is the truth.
Yeah.
So whatever you decide to implement, when you come back 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks later, I can tell you, was there a change in fat to the gram? Was there a change in muscle to the gram? Was there a change in visceral fat to the gram? Did you gain or lose? Like, it's the truth. That's what I love about the follow-up DEXA. And then you can rinse and repeat or you can tweak. But either way, you'll get useful information that's going to push you towards your ultimate goal. And you don't have to get it right in the first scan either. Just intelligent steps towards the right biological laws.
Yeah, and it's about building a lifestyle that works for you. It's not, a 12-week body shred or whatever it might be. We're building lifestyles that are going to just become what you do.
It's too hard to keep doing these challenges. And this is so when I got my little pot belly and then
Yes.
I bought the DEXA scan, I won the local body composition 10-week challenge here in Crow's Nest, right?
Amazing.
But that is such a hard way to live.
Yeah.
The better way to live is to understand the laws and gently walk towards them so you can enjoy it. And people are like, can I never drink again? Of course you can have alcohol. Can I never go out again? Of course you can. But you really do have to get the basics. And the old 80-20 rule is really true. If you can do
Yeah.
80% correct, you can probably get away with 15 or 20%. You still have to live, but live healthily.
Yeah. So this is a good question. So in your opinion, sorry, what daily habits have the biggest negative impact on metabolism?
Yeah, so when Albanese, the Prime Minister, gives me the power to do it, this is what I do. You have to fix your sleep. I talk more
Yeah.
about sleep than I do macros, and that you have to get the sleep right. And you can go into any YouTube, they all say the same things. I've been tracking now for I think 7 years.
Yeah.
You've got to control the light, like we decided before, and you've got to get the morning sunlight, and you've got to be off your devices. If you don't get your sleeping right, your cortisol's high. And here we go, Emma. If the cortisol's high, the glucose goes up. If the glucose goes up, the insulin goes up, and now you're on your way to terrible body composition. So I would absolutely fix that. But there's one other rule, which is the most heinous to break, and it's this. Unfortunately, no food, last bite, 6 p.m. Has to be. And then there has to be at least 3, but maybe more, 4 hours of absolutely no food before you go to sleep, because your body will not release melatonin until the digestion's done. If you eat in that period, you're gone. If you eat chips or cookies or ice cream in that period, there is nothing I can do, because you will have high insulin all night, and you use continuous glucose monitors, which I
I
love,
do.
the greatest behavioral patient tool ever invented. And
Yeah.
when you see it at night, if you ever track it with your sleep, you will never sleep when your insulin is high. So
Yeah.
getting your sleep right, and then last bite would be the second hard rule. And the third hard rule is have breakfast, stop eating, have lunch, stop eating, have dinner. 4 to 5 hours between, so that your insulin can drop in between the meals. The people that eat all day, the insulin just dances all day through, all night. So eat, stop, and then 3 to 4 hours, and master your sleep. That will move it wildly.
Yeah, I think those Europeans have something, right there, right? Having that main midday meal, have a little rest, and then, a little snack. But people that know me really well also know that I love what I call a nana dinner. Like, I'm happy to have an early dinner at 5:30. And if I'm going out with friends, I always ask, like, what time do they open?
No, Nana dinner, you are 100% true. It's a
It feels
rule.
better. It feels so much better for me.
Yeah, it's one of the big rules, and most people are eating late. Like I'll have the couple I had in today. I said, "What time do you finish eating?" They're like 8:30. I said, "What time do you go to bed?" They said 9:30. I said, "Do you snack after dinner?" They said, "Yes."
How do they
So
fit a snatching?
they're having little snacks. They will never ever be fixed, and their visceral fat was off the charts high. And one was very normal looking, classic skinny fat, which I can diagnose from DEXA. And the other one looked a little heavy set, but both of their visceral fats were off the charts. Nothing will change until they change that, unfortunately.
Mm. Well, I think that for anyone that's watching or listening, the first thing that you can do, the first action step you can take is start moving your evening calories earlier and having that 3-hour gap between your last mouthful, your
Yes.
bedtime.
Yes. Yeah, that would be, if I had to move one thing, that's what I would move.
Yeah. Wow, I feel very validated now. Thank you, Adam.
Your Nana dinner is perfect, Nana.
We're heading to Greece later this year, and I was telling my partner on the weekend, when we're in Greece, we have lunch, but we don't really sit down and have dinner like we do here. We just have something very light, kind of late afternoon, and then that's it. So it really does feel like we're supposed to live with that rhythm.
Yep, 100%. And of course, the other great thing about grease and people don't realize is that mitochondria love sunlight. In fact, they've got a little protein, and when red light hits it, and the sun is 42% red light, when the red light hits it, they produce more energy. That's why you feel more energized if you're out in the sun. Because you asked before, how can I improve my mitochondria and get rid of all the cortisols? And be outside, guys, with as much, don't get sunburnt, but get sun exposed. Because when you realize the mitochondria produce more energy in response to red light, I don't think you need a bigger clue that we need red light. And the biggest source is not the lamp that you bought from the healthcare practitioner. It's actually the sun. So
Yeah.
that's partly why you're on holiday, cortisol goes down, blood glucose goes down, you love it. You're in the sun, the mitochondria producing more, and you're not eating late. This is cave people stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think I'm doing a lot that's already right, but there's a lot of tweaks that I'm making. The one that I'm finding the hardest is adding calories, is getting more calories in. But I'm working on it because, I've got the data now and I love data. And the report that you gave me and went through, it's got so much information, as you mentioned. Last thing, Adam, any last thoughts around metabolism?
Last thoughts about metabolism.
There's so much, I know.
Yeah. It's actually those two rules is the biggest way to improve your metabolism. And after 20,000 scans, I would say most people are pushing too hard, eating too little, not doing enough zone 1 and zone 2, and sleeping terribly and eating too late. You've got to, unfortunately, move towards not doing that in a way that makes sense to you, that's gentle, that you can reproduce for life. Biology, unfortunately, does not care. It's the high insulin will come no matter if you don't follow those rules, the high insulin will come.
Okay, wise words. So we will put links to your clinic below, but for those that are listening, where can people find you if they want to reach out?
Yeah, so just go to bodymeasure.com.au and you'll see you can start with just the DEXA. I suggest most people do what you did, the Meta and the DEXA, because there's just so much more synergistic information that we can give them. And I'm very big on the bloods. Once I've got the insulin and the glucose, we've got your testosterone, liver, and kidney functions. We can tell you quite a lot about your metabolic health.
Yeah, I would encourage everyone to do the 2 tests as your baseline because they do come together a bigger picture, more holistic picture of the individual.
I can't tell you the amount of times people get a DEXA and then say, can I get a Meta? And of course, for the Meta, you have to fast, no coffee, no exercise, and we can't do it. So yeah, just do them at the same time.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Adam.
Well, thanks for your time, Emma. It's always lovely to chat.
Pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us today. Don't forget to like this video, hit the subscribe button below. Check out all the links in the show notes for more health empowering information.